What's up, guys? Jordan from Bennett's Customs. We are back on another episode, switching it up. We're over on the Kombi van. For everyone out there, challenge right now. Think of a name for this build. Kombi van, split window, airplane motor, radial motor, something along the lines of flying. Flying something special, something like that. We want to do some really neat sign writing on here. So come up, get your thinking caps on, put it in the comments below. We need a name. Whatever name we pick, we'll send you a little package of some goodies. So towards the back end of these things, one thing I've never been a fan with is the taillights. I don't know what it is, but they don't look right. So I'm changing them. And what I want to do is incorporate some early Ford stuff. And there's quite a few little bits and pieces that will be going through this that are going to be real subtle. And, obviously trying to make it look as if they were there in the first, what am I trying to say? They're supposed to be there in the first, what's the fucking word I'm looking for? In the first place. Thank you. So they're supposed to be there in the first place. And what I've figured out, I did mention the 50 Pontiac taillights. They just didn't look right. They're too round. This is a long rectangle object with lots of soft curves. And a taillight that exemplifies that is a 42 to 48 Ford taillight. They have a nice rectangular shape to them with nice soft edges. So I thought something like that. They're small. They're super simple. They're not going to take away from the style of the body. If anything, they're just a nice little complement piece to the rest of the body. Our main focal point back here is going to be this motor. What we have for an idea for the trunk lid, I suppose you'd call it, or the rear hatch, is has something a little bit different as well. So this is probably going to be the main focal point. So we don't need to have, big flash things around it. This is our idea of the jewel. So we just want to make sure everything looks nice, complements this. So these, I think, will do that job. And they're just going to be really nice. We were kind of playing around with a few different locations, but I still think down here, nice chrome bezel with the nice chrome or nickel-plated bumper that we'll put on here. And then, just a few. We're going to have the safari window that's got a really nice chrome stainless edge around it or frame. So there's going to be subtle bits of chrome and nickel plate back here, but this is going to be obviously the main area. So what I want to do is I want to stick these in here. What I need to do is cut this out, obviously replace it with something. Now, I want to make it look like they were supposed to be there rather than just kind of like filling that void, drilling a few holes, and actually mounting the housing, which we have over here. So these are the actual housings that we want to mount. So what I'm thinking is I want to kind of get a little bit creative, and I'm going to form like a press. So I'm going to use a die. We're going to put a piece of sheet metal in there, and we're going to press an indentation into it. So what I mean is, what I want to do is I'm going to utilize this plate. I'm going to make a male and a female piece. We're going to slide the sheet metal in between. We're going to use the male piece on top. We're going to put it in the press, and we're going to squish it. And what that's going to give us is a kind of a beveled edge, or almost like a step, kind of something like that. And then it'll come up, and then this is where our housing would sit. This is our lens, something like this. Have it come right around like that, and that is going to step in slightly. But what we're going to do is use the hole saws, drill it, cut it out, then we'll make the male version, and then I might even just bolt this piece to a piece of form ply so it's got a little area in there, and then we're just going to test it on a few different pieces, especially with depth and stuff as well. We can kind of put a few shims in there. If we want to make it deeper, I can kind of add to it. And then we will have to get it onto the hammer or the wheel and kind of form them slightly. And then once they're in there, then we can kind of stick them in, weld them in, hopefully make it look like they're never there, and it'll just have a nice little soft indentation where these will then bolt to. Sounds pretty simple. So let's get straight into it. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I got this plate, and this is going to be my female portion of it. So this is going to be my frame that we're going to put the sheet metal into, and then we'll have the male bit that'll actually press into it. And what I'm trying to do is to try and get like a nice kind of shape that I want to try and simulate with this as well. So if I kind of go like that, how big do I want it around there? What can I use to trace it? There'd be like a lot of things. And what I think I want to do is, because the male bit will actually be a lot smaller, is the female version I can probably get away with this. This is a 3 3/4 or 95 mil hole saw. So if I were to do 2 of these, cut it out, then I'll have a nice rectangle. Then I can bring my other one in. And what I'm thinking I can do for the male one is actually put this down and use the plasma cutter and trace right around it. It might work. A CNC table would be very nice for this type of stuff. You just design it, cut it out, it's done. We're gonna do it the old way. So what I'm gonna do is just make a few measurements, and then I'm gonna try and lay it out and see if it's gonna work. If it does, we'll run over to the drill press, pop 2 holes in with the hole saw, cut the inside out, and then we can kind of see what this is going to start to look like. And it may make a little bit more sense once I get that male one in, and I'll show you kind of an example of what we're trying to achieve.
In the town on the hill where the apples grow, the church bells ring every hour or so. I took a little walk just to see the ships coming in. The sun rose up right above the highway. Black, blue, red, yellow, golden skyway. It's like the day that you jump into the wind. I can't go back down to that water again.
All right, so as you can see, we have a hole in the female part of this die. And what I'm going to do is I'll actually cut this out. And we're going to drill 4 holes, and those holes will transfer into the piece of form ply that will sit under here like that. And then this is our male part of the die that's actually going to press in. So I wanted to make sure that it had a nice kind of even spacing all the way around it. So if you can imagine, there's our tail light. This is going to be the outside of the edge, and then it's going to drop down. So here, when we line it up, we got about a 10 mil nice line that goes right around it. So essentially, it should have a really nice kind of even surface, and then it'll kind of kick up to the actual surface of the van. So what I need to do is finish cutting this guy out, then I'll cut our corners, and then I can go over on the linisher, and we're just going to clean it up. And then what we need to do is cut this out, and then I need to bevel this edge just slightly. I don't want it to be too sharp. I kind of want to have a not too steep of a step in. I don't want it to be too pronounced. I kind of want it to sort of flow. You know, we got a lot of soft edges on that car, so I want to kind of try and replicate those. So I'll probably use the scribe, and we'll run around. I'll use the Sharpie, and then we'll use the scribe, and then I can kind of taper it with the file, and then we'll clean it up with the sander and make sure it's a nice even fit before we try and trial it and see if this will work or not.
These old muddy shoes keep on walking the streets. Someone's bride buying Egyptian sheets. The window display of some little store in town. And there's my reflection against the morning light. Hello, Mr. Ghost, Mr. Skeleton White. You better comb your hair, you better wipe that George clay off your brow. You better stand up straight, man, these people hardly recognize you now. Lord, carry me like a sailing ship. Comfort me before I slip around the dark side of the moon. All this spinning around hurts my head. I just sit here lonesome for you. There's a million things I would rather do instead. I know it takes a lot to change a worried mind, and I know it takes a year to see the warm summertime. But I'm made of nails, man, made of tombstone and tall, tall trees.
How this works. This plate goes on like that. All these holes line up. Everything kind of lines up where it's supposed to. So as long as we get this guy, I'll mark these. We can drill this out or clamp it at least. Then that's going to go on there like that. And what I can do too is I can even just like screw a piece, or if this was another piece of steel, I could just weld like little bits so that everything kind of locates, like little locating tabs. So that's going to go there. This piece is going to go on like that. That's our piece from helping it, not distort. Now we have our press piece. So this piece, what I think I should do is probably weld a bit of material on the top side, just so that the press has something to make contact to and it's not going to want to display or fall. We want to make sure that this is perfectly flat when it's pressing. So I'm going to do that. While I do that, I'm probably going to try and clamp this down to the table as flat as possible so that when I do weld it, it's not going to want to distort or pull. Then this piece will go on like this. And what I will do is I'm going to try and make some sort of locating thing so that every time this piece goes in, it's going to be perfect. So it's not off to one side or a little bit higher or lower, because I'll see it and it'll annoy me. So I want to make sure it's perfect all the way around. Then now what we have is the press coming down, going to make contact to that. It's going to press the sheet metal. Because the sheet metal is bolted between this, it can't pull the sheet metal in essentially. So I may even have to put like another, I might have to put another 4 in here so we have 4 bolts to hold it, because this kind of material side, it might actually want to pull it in a little bit. But we can kind of allow a little bit of the shrinkage that way, because we're going to essentially cut this material off, but we just want to make sure that it's actually stretching it and kind of doing what it's supposed to. So we're going to give it a test run. I'm just going to use some screws through into the timber, but I think what I should do is drill all the way through, and then we can kind of put a countersunk bolt up through the bottom side, and then we know that everything lines up in the same way every single time. So that's probably what I should do right away. Then this piece gets on, and we press it. Okay, so here's our base. Bottom is countersunk. So this holds our 1/4-inch stainless countersunk screws. And the reason why I did countersunk is just so that there is no interruptions on the bottom with the plates in the press itself. So here's our main female die that I've explained before. I added 2 more, so we had the 4 and I've added 2, and if I need to I can add another 2 in there, but I think this should be okay. So there's our piece. Want to make sure the bottom is nice and clean in there because that's where the steel is actually going to sit. We then have our material that we are going to try and see if this works. I may just quickly use some metho and clean this off so when I flip it over, hopefully we can have a nice look at what it's going to kind of look like, resemble. And the whole time I'm doing this as well, I'm making sure, like I just got little arrows to make sure I know which way they're supposed to go up, which way they're facing. So we got that, and this is the material we're actually going to try and press itself. Then we got our top piece. This top piece now is just essentially to kind of hold everything together and not to lift any of the sheet metal up or kind of try and let it to distort, sorry. So now that that's on, we can kind of throw our washers on here. And the reason why I haven't beveled any edges or done any of the finishing side, as I've explained, is I just want to make sure that this is going to work. There's definitely a chance that it might not. So we want to make sure we give it a quick trial. I haven't welded anything to that top plate yet, as I explained. I did find a really nice chunk of material. Almost looks like it's like 1 by 3/4. And that should kind of help keep everything flat while I try it. And what I want to do as well is, it's kind of hard to try and get this centered. So what I did was I'd originally put the main female down and I kind of just eyeballed it. And I was able to make 3 marks on the actual steel itself. So if I go like that and line it up with our holes, we're in good order. But what I'd like to do is maybe weld some stuff to this that kind of locates that so I know exactly where it's going to sit. Now we have that little piece in there. Then we got our main lower die, our sheet metal, and then our upper piece that's just kind of holding everything together. Nice and smooth on the bottom. We can then go and slide this in the press, make sure everything's even. Then we're going to put this in. We're going to line that up. And then we're going to take our little piece here that I've just cut. We're going to put that on there and we're going to press this and see if it works. If everything works, what I might end up doing is I may even end up welding this to it so that it doesn't move at all. But I'm kind of hoping that this should distribute the weight enough and kind of help it from wanting to essentially want to warp. But again, we could be coming down on the press with this because there's nothing out on this outside of this male part of the die. It may even want to even tweak a little bit. So what I could do now is we could just throw straight edge on it, dead flat both ways. Now let's go try and press this and then we'll measure it and see if it actually did tweak it a little bit. Just gonna slide this in here and bring this down. All right. Just wanna make sure it's even. All right, let's give it a try and see what it does. Seems like it's pushing it relatively even. All right. So if we pull this puppy out, okay, it's definitely worked. So we need to pull this piece off and then we'll see how even we got it. Okay. So at first glance, it almost looks like it's off by a lot. Well, fingers crossed it's not, but it's just because this top bit's not super accurate. It's just to hold that material. So let's just quickly look at this. Flat, dead flat. That's awesome. Okay, so that means we didn't get any distortion with that, which is really nice. I'm also kind of happy we didn't bevel the edges. I think we might not even do that. Oh, baby. Oh, that's good. That's real good. And, okay, so by the looks of it, I need to either press it just a little bit more because what we've got here is a little bit of rock this way. So that means that we've kind of pressed it and maybe it flexed a little bit. I don't know. It's not too bad though. For stretching it, like, I think that's all right. But you can see it's quite consistent all the way around. And then the backside, you can even see, you know, that's like even a nice press. Like I could have this and be building something for the floor of the hot rod, and you know, we need a little access door to fill up the master cylinder. Well, we could do like a little nice piece like that, have an access hole and a lid, and you know, that's, so it's good to know that like we could use it for certain things. Now I could take this piece and we could make sure we can form it. So we're gonna have to, you know, do a little bit of work, but not a lot, to get it to fit in there. And I can even shrink this right down. We don't need to get too crazy with maybe that side. This side's already been cut out and something's kind of, I don't know what they're up to there. So that area we'll have to play around with a little bit, but this is it. That'll go on there, be flush. We'll just have this subtle little indentation there. And then this piece will sit in like that. And then if you were to pull it out and you got your bits, I mean, essentially, that looks like that's supposed to go there. So bang, on like that. Tiny little recess, just a subtle detail that makes it look like these 42 to 48 Ford taillights are designed for this Kombi van. So let's get to starting to measure up a few areas. And what I might do is make some measurements, cut some bits out, and then what we can do is transfer that. We'll press 2 of these, making sure they're dead even, and then I can cleco them into place, scribe the edge, cut them out, butt weld them in, and then we'll put these in. All right, so we got both taken over, put through the press. They both turned out really, really nice. They're very symmetrical. They match really well. Very pleased with them. I was kind of maybe thinking I was going to have to do a couple to kind of get the right one, but worked out awesome. So it's really nice that, you know, now I kind of have this piece here and I've just labeled it 42 to 48 Ford taillights, and this will just kind of go in the box of all the other weird and obscure things that we make. So, you know, now I have it, and well, I can probably use it for other things as well. It doesn't specifically have to be for this taillight, like I had mentioned, for maybe a little cap for opening up on the floor for your master cylinder and stuff. So kind of worked out really good. Next step, we have it laid out. This taillight has got quite a large oval housing on the back of it. I need to make this hole so that this can slide through, and then this piece will actually sit against that bezel similar to that. So what I need to do, I've measured that kind of both ways, long and width, and I've just kind of scribed it out. I do have my dies for cutting through or punching through the steel. These are usually, I use them for when I'm doing all my dimple dies. So I got that, got the right size, And what I'm going to do is just open up this center hole with the step bit so I get this size, and then we can kind of go through and we'll just kind of nip the corners, and it just kind of saves a little bit of time cutting it out with a grinder and trying to file it all. So we're going to do this now, and then once these are done, we'll be able to get them over to the car. All right, so you can see we've made a nice little oval shape in there. It was really easy to do, didn't have to use the grinder or anything. And that is just going to allocate a space that holds that housing. So now that housing goes through, we now have our tail light with our kind of press formed little sort of subtle, I don't know, recess you'd call it. Yeah, I'm really pleased with it. I think it'll look really nice once it's on there. We should also probably think about maybe making a rubber gasket, which we did not receive any. So that would probably help, and it would just seal the back side of it. Otherwise, any moisture that's going to come down is going to go straight into that tail light. So I've got to make sure I do that. But yeah, that's going to look really nice. So what I want to do is cut out those two spaces on there with the grinder so that this can slide in. And once that's in, we can kind of figure out exactly where it's going to go. All right, so you can see what we're trying to achieve here. So I just use 4 clecos to hold it into place. And basically, I can use my Sharpie Magnum I'm going to remove this piece, and I'm just going to trace around that edge with this. And then I'm going to put it back in, and then I'm going to use my scribe to scribe all the way around. And then I can pull it off, and then I have a really nice clean line to know where to get to for this to fit in nice and tight. As you can see on this side, I just kind of put a few pieces of tape on the back side of the housing to hold it in. But this is kind of what we're trying to achieve. I think once it's welded in and blended and painted, like it'll just naturally look like these taillights are for this car. Now with welding, I could run around and tack them with the MIG and just take my time, use the little air nozzle and cool it down to not like distort it by any means. But because I do have full access to the back side of this, I will just end up TIG welding them in, and then I can get in there with a hammer and dolly and clean them up. I can even get in there with the planishing hammer and fully smooth them if I wanted to. So this car is definitely going to be getting bodywork, high build, and paint and the rest. So I'm not looking for perfect metal finish on these. If it's still got a little bit of remnants of where they were welded, I'm happy with that. as long as obviously, you know, we don't have any high spots with the weld. If it's able to just have a little bit of filler put over it, and then blocked, primed, and painted, you know, it's exactly what we're trying to achieve. So what I will do is I'm just going to pull these off, and then we'll use the Sharpie scribe, and then put them back in, and then I know where to start cutting.
Open
All right, so we got this one welded in, and I've kind of just hammered and dollied the majority of it. There's probably still a few spots that I need to massage a little bit in order to get it, you know, kind of where I want it to be. But I want to test the taillight and see what this looks like. While we were kind of sanding, we did find a couple of old patch jobs and a few damaged areas. I was able to hammer a lot of this out, which was really nice. But I'll probably have to come through here and rectify this area, as well as on the other side there's a little hidden gem that we found that will need to be fixed as well. But for the actual taillight setup, I'm pretty pleased with how they were able to weld in, especially for this one here where we weren't able to actually get to the back side of this. So you know, luckily we were able to just kind of keep that consistent heat all the way through when we were TIG welding them in, and was just able to use the file and the slapper and kind of just get it to a point where it looks really nice. So, and like I had mentioned, a little, you know, skim of some body filler, which is obviously what this is going to have anyways, with primer and paint, and, you know, probably even a coat of polyester on the whole lot before everything gets blocked out, and, you know, trying to achieve that real nice smooth surface. This is one of them opened up, and there was 2 holes in each one, and that's, you know, for putting a bolt through and being able to put a nut on or a cap screw or something. And what I had actually used was a couple of nut certs, and was able to put them in from the backside, use the gun to clamp them down. They're just zinc ones, and now I don't have to worry about trying to take the lens off to put anything through. So this can now slide in, and then from the backside I can use our little 5mm screws and be able to attach it. The one thing I did mention was a gasket. I still need to make a rubber gaskets for when we do final fitment with these, once it's painted. I was just playing around. I had a bit of the cork gasket from different things from a different project, and just thought it'd be kind of cool to maybe just make a little cork one. And all I did there was just use the bezel, and I just traced it out and cut it. Might not be quite what we're after, but it'd just be nice to have a gasket in there to see how it's going to sit. But we're going to install this guy now, and see how it's going to fit. I'll just get my little screw lined up, what it's going to look like. Okay, so that is, just clean that lens a little bit from my hands, but that's essentially what we're trying to achieve. So a fair amount of work to try and make the buck in order to make a very simple piece for the taillight to attach to. But what I'm hoping is, once this is all painted in the nice kind of off-white color, they'll kind of show a nice little shadow line in there, and then it'll complement the bezel as well. And it just sort of something that maybe looks like they're supposed to be there. So that's kind of the whole idea with these. They're real small, super subtle, not taking away from anything in here, because we have, you know, some future ideas we want to do with this door and stuff as well. So I'm pretty pleased with that. I think once we got our nice little chrome bumper, that'll go around here, and they're nickel plated. May even pull these bezels off, get them nickel plated as well, and you know, just complement each other. All right, so as you can see, we got both taillights fixed into place, and what I kind of want to do is see what they look like. So I just ran a few wires, got my trusty little motorcycle battery. I'm going to stand outside of the shot, and we are going to see, hopefully this works. Oh yeah, those are good, eh? Let's see what that looks like without shop lights. Not bad, not bad at all. Back on. All right, so there you have it. 42 to 48 Ford taillights on a split window Kombi van. I'd love the end of this video to be after it's all painted and they're on and we're driving down, but that'll be in our future video. This is more or less just on like how we made this really simple buck. Then that, you know, led to being able to kind of make these templates. From that, we were able to obviously weld it in and fix our taillights, and now we have them on to kind of show you an example. and I just think they look pretty cool. I think you could take this kind of buck setup and you could really make some like really neat things. In one of Carl's video from Make It Custom, he actually made these like little spearheads for the front of his hood on the Roadster that he's building, and that was a really cool thing. And he really gets in depth of how to do it. But I think you could really kind of take this and create some really neat, even like pretty detailed bits and pieces that you could put into this. All right, well, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Please like, subscribe, hit notifications, and we will see you on another episode of Bennett's Customs next week. Thanks, guys. Oh, shit. Holy, this is dark. Whoa, what was that?